It is October 1922. Deep in the ancient woodlands of Värmland, Sweden, a logging crew enters forests that have remained untouched for centuries, protected, forbidden territory. Within days, stones begin falling out of the darkness. Something huge moves among the trees, something that knew these woods when they were young. This is the true account drawn from foreman Yan Lindström's journal. What became of the 12 men who chose to ignore the warnings? What hunted them from the shadows? And what might still be waiting in those woods today? The full truth is not easy to hear. Yet some stories refuse to stay buried. On the morning of the 9th of October 1922, the train from Karlstad set me down at the end of the line just after dawn near Värmland logging camp in northern Sweden. From there, a timber wagon took me another 18 kilometers into the forest. The trees grow so densely that noon feels like twilight. Ancient pines, some 400 years old, stand close together, their branches woven overhead. The company bought this land last spring, and they say the timber here is of exceptional quality. People say all kinds of things. I am Yan Lindström, foreman for the Värmland Timber Company, and I have worked these forests for 23 years. I know the whisper of wind through pine needles, the sharp crack of frost on bark, and the way snowfall changes with the temperature. I thought I knew these woods. Our camp is well established, with 12 men in total, 6 Swedes, 4 Finns, and 2 Norwegians, all of them experienced. Erik Svensson is my second in command, strong as an ox, steady hands, and never a complaint. Niels Patterson mans the lookout station, watching for any sign of fire. The rest work the saws and axes, good professional men. We are clearing the forest in sections, heading west to east, and the company expects 3,000 board feet before the first snow. It is arduous work, but the pay is decent. My wife Anna asked me to write every week, and I promised her I would. Our daughter, Secret, turns 7 in December, and I intend to be home by then. I assumed this camp would be no different from the others. The same work, the same sounds, the same rhythm of labor and rest. I was wrong about what lives between these trees. On the 14th of October 1922, the first stone struck Erik's tent just after midnight. The snap against canvas was sharp enough to wake half the camp. He came out holding his lantern, certain someone was playing a trick. In the dirt lay a stone the size of a man's fist, granite and wet with dew. The stone itself was unremarkable, except for the simple fact that it was there. Erik pointed north and said it had probably rolled down from the ridge, a rocky outcrop about 200 meters from camp, caused by frost heave or shifting ground. It sounded logical, so I noted it in the log as a minor incident. Clear weather, falling temperature, 1 stone, likely natural in origin. We went back to sleep. Then came the 18th of October, 1922. Over the next 3 nights, 4 more stones appeared, always after dark and always near the tents. They varied in size, but all were granite. One hit the pole of the mess tent, and another landed dead center in the fire pit, scattering embers. The men are beginning to talk. This morning, Niels came to me. I heard something last night out past the cutting zone. Something big moving through the brush, he said. A bear, I told him. They're getting ready for winter. Looking for food, but he insisted. Jan, I know what a bear sounds like. This was not a bear. When I asked what it was, he stared at me for a long moment, then walked away without a word. The work continues, and we are ahead of schedule. The trees here are magnificent straight trunks, almost no rot, and when they fall, they crash like thunder, echoing through the forest for minutes. On the 23rd of October 1922, I counted 12 stones in the morning light, scattered along the camp perimeter like markers or warnings. At breakfast, fear hung thick over the mess tent. No one wanted to be the first to say what we were all thinking. Eric found tracks, not bear tracks, not moose or deer or wolf, but the print of something walking on two legs, enormous in size. Each print measured about 30 centimeters long and broad across the heel, with a stride of nearly 2 meters. Whatever made them, it is tall. Very tall. I took the measurements myself and wrote them down, then read them back to myself. They still make no sense. As I was heading to my tent, one of the Finnish workers, Maddie, stopped me. "We have stories about these forests," he said quietly. "Old stories," he continued. "My grandmother told them to me. I told him there was no time for superstition. We have a quota to meet." He nodded and said, "Yes, foreman." Of course, but his eyes were saying something else entirely. Tonight, I am writing by lamplight. Outside, the forest is perfectly silent. No wind, no animal sounds, only the occasional crack of a tree settling in the cold. And every so often, another sound, something large, moving just beyond the firelight, just beyond where I can see. I promised Anna I would write, and I am already 3 letters behind. The 27th of October, 1922. I saw it, or I saw something, and I need to put it down while it is still fresh, while I can still trust my memory. It was just before dawn, and sleep would not come. The stones had been falling steadily since midnight, an uneven percussion that made rest impossible. Gripping my rifle, I circled the camp's edge. It may have been foolish, yet I had to be certain. That deep pre-dawn hour made the tree line darker than the sky, all color fading into gray uncertainty. Roughly 50 meters out, I spotted a figure among the pines. Towering my God, impossibly tall, 3 meters high, or perhaps beyond. It leaned forward, its arms extending far beyond a human proportion. Motionless, it stared at the camp, stared at us. I raised my rifle, but my trembling hands made aiming nearly impossible. "Who's there?" I shouted, first in Swedish, then Norwegian, finally Finnish. My words got lost in the overwhelming stillness. It shifted, not retreating, not approaching, just adjusted its stance. I could hear its breaths, heavy and rhythmic, like a blacksmith's bellows. Its breath sent steam curling into the frosty air. Then it retreated into the darkness, vanishing without a trace. No snapping twigs, no footfall, simply disappeared. I stayed there until dawn fully broke, my rifle pointing at empty space. The date, the 30th of October 1922. The crew wants to abandon the camp. Only Eric remains by my side. And lately, even his loyalty seems to waver. Last night, we counted 17 stones striking the camp. A rock tore through the mess tent's canvas, and another split the water barrel. Half of our fresh water is already gone. Niels refuses to return to the lookout post. He calls it too isolated, too far from the rest. Over and over, he insists it watches from above, even in daylight. It sits up there watching. This morning I discovered fresh tracks, closer than before, directly at our camp's boundary, plus scratch marks on a pine, deep furrows in the bark, 2 meters off the ground. Whatever made those claws, or nails. I'm doing my best to keep discipline and continue our work. But today, Eric took me aside. Johan, I've worked these woods since age 16, he began. My father and his father did the same. There are certain spots we've always left untouched, sacred almost. You mean superstitious? I replied. Could be, he conceded. But look at these trees. They've stood for centuries longer than anywhere else. This entire area is virgin forest untouched for hundreds of years, and that's deliberate. When I pressed him for the reason, he simply stared at me. Our job is to harvest timber for the company. I reminded him, and that's what we'll do. He gave a slow nod. Then we'd better move quickly. Date: the 2nd of November, 1922. 3 workers walked away at dawn, both Norwegians and one of the Finns. They gathered their things before first light and headed back toward the railway. I couldn't bring myself to stop them. Perhaps I wouldn't have succeeded anyway. 9 of us remain, and the felling goes on, though at a much reduced pace. The whole crew keeps glancing behind them, and the axes' sounds don't ring right in this forest. At times, I'm certain the echoes return distorted, as if they're rebounding off a moving shape. After 3 weeks, I finally sat down last night to compose a letter to Anna. Then I heard something like singing. A low, cadenced murmur drifted from deep among the trees. The others caught it as well. We all stepped outside our tents, listening. The sound endured 10 minutes at most, then fell silent. The noise ceased as abruptly as it had begun. Maddie was in tears. "This is bad," he repeated. "This is very, very bad." In the morning, I discovered my journal lying open. I remember shutting it the night before. I never leave it that way. A page had been ripped out my entry from the previous day, where I'd written about the figure among the pines, vanished completely. The rough edge remained, but the page itself had been taken. I am the only one who sleeps in this tent. The 5th of November 1922. The stone throwing has ceased, which ought to relieve us. Instead, it worries me more. The quiet is unbearable. For 3 nights, we've had no stones, no noises, no indication of being observed, only an empty hush. Eric says the creature has gone. I'm convinced otherwise. I sense it hovering out there, nearer than before, biding its time. Today we discovered one of our logging saws bent, not snapped, but folded. The steel, half a centimeter thick, had been curved into an arc, as if gripped by 2 hands and wrung like a piece of wire. "We have to get out of here," Neil declared, giving no room for debate. 4 more days, I answered. We're just short of our quota. Once those 4 days pass, the wagons will arrive. We complete the assignment. If this keeps up, no one may remain to finish the job, but somehow we will. We must. I've given my word. This company has had me for 23 years, all of them spent in these woods. Just 4 more days. The 7th of November 1922. I'm putting this down from memory. 2 nights ago, I couldn't write at all. My hands trembled too violently to even grasp the pen. That night, it entered the camp, not hovering at the perimeter, not hiding in the tree line. It stepped right into our midst. We were all seated by the fire, dining on the usual pea soup and hardtack, the same meal we've had for weeks. Eric was sharing a tale about his brother back in Gothenburg. All seemed ordinary, completely ordinary. Then the cold hit without warning, as if a doorway to winter had swung open. In just moments, our breath transformed from nothing into dense mist. The flames faltered, bending sideways despite the stillness of the air. And that odor. Oh, that odor. Damp soil mixed with something far older. Something decayed, like a tomb newly exposed. Like earth buried from sunlight for ages. It moved through the camp, passing between the tents. The first thing I noticed was its silhouette, thrown large onto the tent fabric by our flames. Then the creature itself came into view, roughly 3.5 meters tall, perhaps taller, draped in dark matter that could have been fur or moss, or a blend of both, tangled and damp. Its arms dangled well below its knees, and its hands were equipped with unnaturally elongated fingers, tipped by nails resembling charred timber. Its face, I can still picture it clearly, was vaguely human, yet every measurement seemed distorted and off. Its eyes sat far too wide, buried beneath a prominent jutting brow. The nose was broad and flattened, while the mouth stretched unnaturally deep into the skin, resembling a gash across its features. For roughly 30 seconds, it remained motionless, carefully studying each of us, one by one. As its gaze landed on me, my chest constricted with a cold, suffocating sensation. Those eyes held a clear intelligence. It was evaluating, making a choice. Then it bent and seized one of our axes from the ground. It lifted the axe as if it were a plaything, rotating it between its hands to inspect it closely. The glow of the fire reflected off the metal edge. A noise escaped the creature, a deep, gravelly rumble that nearly resembled speech, yet carried a hint of amusement. Then it let the axe fall and retreated into the woods. As it departed, we listened to trees cracking and limbs snapping, the noises gradually diminishing. For a long stretch, nobody dared to move. When we eventually stirred, 2 additional men gathered their belongings and departed, choosing to trek through the darkness rather than endure another night. I couldn't fault them for leaving. It's the 9th of November, 1922. Our group now consists of 5: Eric, Niels, Maddie, a Finn called Juo, and me. All work has ceased completely. Our only goal now is to hold on until the wagons arrive tomorrow. Just one more day, one more night. The trees encircling our camp are now covered with markings, gouges, and scratches, some quite deep, along with carved symbols that could be some form of writing, or could be meaningless. Yesterday, these marks didn't exist. This morning, I circled the camp and tallied 23 affected trees. Every scratch appeared at a consistent elevation, roughly 2.5 meters off the ground. Eric interprets this as a territorial sign, the creature staking its claim and demanding we go. I assured him that the wagons would indeed arrive tomorrow. He asked if we could survive until then, but I offered no reply. I genuinely don't know. This afternoon, however, I discovered my notebook once more. This time, lying open beside the fire pit. I had stored it away in my tent, secured inside my locked trunk. Something evidently had relocated it. The pages contained fresh markings, not script, but intentional scratches arranged into patterns, spirals, lines, and shapes that caused pain if studied too long. I'm frightened, and I need to record that admission to make it tangible. This fear is unlike anything I've experienced in my life. Death itself didn't terrify me, not in the usual way. What I feared was being seized, pulled into the trees, and vanishing forever, becoming one of this forest's hidden mysteries. It's now dawn on the 10th of November 1922, and the wagons are expected by midday. This company runs on schedule, so they will show up they must. Last night stretched on like an eternity. We raised the fire high, consumed nearly all our leftover timber, and formed a circle with our backs to the heat. With rifles at the ready, we kept our eyes fixed on the tree line. The gloom surrounding our camp was total and unyielding, and something lurked within it. Everyone picked up the sound of it moving around the perimeter, just hidden from view, occasionally drawing near enough for us to catch its breath, a slow, heavy cadence resembling a slumbering titan. At times, stones rolled and twigs cracked, and once, without any doubt, we heard it utter sounds akin to speech. They weren't exactly words, but they carried the rhythm of speech deep and guttural, its pitch climbing and dipping as though posing a question, as if it were communicating some kind of message or caution. Juo began to pray, repeating the identical invocation endlessly, while his voice rose in pitch and tension until Maddie ordered him to cease. "You're summoning it," Maddie warned. "You're pulling it closer." Near 3 a.m, a heavy, soft mass struck the mess tent, no rock this time. When dawn broke, we discovered the source: a newly killed deer. The animal's neck had been snapped, bent into an unnatural position, and it rested deliberately upon the tent fabric, placed with care, like a gift or a warning. "It's demonstrating its power," Eric murmured, "and it wants us to be aware. The supply wagons are expected within a few hours, and we have enough strength to hold out until then." It is the afternoon of the 10th of November 1922. My hand is cramping, so I must write hurriedly, but I need to record this while my mind remains clear. The wagons didn't appear at noon. It's past 2 o'clock now, and they have never been late before. Neil climbed up a tree to survey the road. He returned pale and cleared his throat before reporting that the way was obstructed. Massive trees, recently cut, lay across the trail. We went to see for ourselves. 3 huge pines had been brought down across the wagon path. They showed no saw marks. They had been snapped clean at the base and placed like a deliberate barrier. A crew would need 2 full days to clear those trunks. I suggested we leave everything behind and walk the 18 kilometers through the forest. Eric shook his head, certain we wouldn't make it with that creature out there. Then what should we do? No one had an answer. We remained on the blocked road, hemmed in by ancient pines, and no one spoke up. It was the evening of the 10th of November 1922. We finally made a decision. Our plan is to survive the night and then depart at first light, staying together, moving quickly, and stopping for nothing. That is our only option. Eric is sharpening the axes, and Maddie is inspecting the rifles. Niels is pacing without rest, and Juo is praying again, softer this time. As for me, I'm writing this down so that if anything happens, if we don't get out, someone will find it. Someone has to know what was here, that creature. I need a name for it. Troll. The old stories speak of Jotun, Skog, or forest giant. Whatever it truly is, it's real, it's ancient, and it doesn't want us here. Eric once mentioned sacred places, places you never cut. This forest has existed for centuries, perhaps longer. These trees stood long before Sweden became Sweden, before companies, quotas, and foremen with notebooks. We came and started cutting, destroying something preserved for generations, and something that dwelled here, something with a long memory, was offended. I can understand that now. Understanding has come too late. The sun is setting, and the cold is sweeping in fast. All 5 of us are gathered in the mess tent, a high fire burning and rifles loaded. Outside, The forest is beginning to stir, and I hear it again, that low, almost melodic hum, nearer than before, far nearer. It's just past midnight on the 11th of November, 1922. The creature is testing us, prodding our camp, seeking any vulnerability. 10 minutes ago, something caught the corner of Niels's tent, tore it from its frame, and shredded the canvas like parchment. Niels scrambled out, tumbled into the dirt, and dashed for the mess tent. When we looked back, the shelter was gone, utterly gone, leaving only the bare frame. A short time later, we heard heavy, deliberate footsteps moving the length of the roof above us. The canvas sagged under the weight, and we stood there, rifles aimed upward, watching the ceiling bend and creak. Then it halted. Silence, broken only by our breathing. Maddie is weeping without a sound. Juo keeps praying. And Eric and I are taking turns watching the door. Niels is curled up in the corner, hands pressed over his ears. Through the canvas, I detect that smell of turned earth and grave dirt. The creature is right outside, waiting. I need to write this clearly. If anyone finds this journal, go to the company and tell them this tract must be declared forbidden. Tell them these trees must never be cut. Tell them something lives here that is older and stronger than we ever imagined. Tell them, please. The roof just produced a sound like ripping cloth. I have to stop now. It's dawn. The 11th of November, 1922. We're alive. I don't know why, but we made it through the night. At around 3 in the morning, the creature stopped its circling. Just stopped. The sound faded. The roof footsteps ceased. We waited, rifles ready, expecting it to crash through the siding at any second. But it didn't. Instead, we listened to it moving away through the forest, its noise growing fainter. After an hour, Eric dared a quick look outside. The camp was empty. The fire had burned down to coals, and the sky was turning gray with first light. It's gone, he said. I think it's gone. We stayed inside until full daylight, and when we emerged, the camp lay destroyed, tents ripped, gear flung about, supplies crushed, but all 5 of us were still alive. We leave now, I said. No packing, no salvage, just walking. No one argued. At midday on the 11th of November, 1922, we managed 6 kilometers before stopping. Juo gave out, overwhelmed by exhaustion and fear. We're resting now in a clearing, our weapons ready, our eyes on the trees. The forest feels different here, younger and far less oppressive. I can never trust another forest again. While Ju was recovering, Eric stumbled upon a circle of ancient stones, half hidden beneath moss and pine needles. Carved into them were the same spirals and scratches we'd seen on the trees near our camp. Eric called them boundary markers, saying we had already crossed them on our way in. At first, we didn't grasp their meaning. But now we do, Maddie said quietly. We plan to push on another 12 kilometers to the railroad, and if we hurry, we should arrive by nightfall. Yet I keep glancing back over my shoulder. The woods behind us are utterly silent, too still, as though the whole forest is holding its breath. The 11th of November, 1922, afternoon. I've read this entry 6 times, but I don't recall writing the final paragraph. We found tracks stretching across our path, the same enormous prints, the same impossible stride. But these were fresh, made within the past hour. And whatever left them is now ahead of us, not behind. Somehow, it had gotten ahead of us, and Niels wanted to turn back and seek another way. There is no other way. Eric told him, this is the only route out. So we march on. The trees here seem different again, older than before. We appear to have circled back into the heart of the forest. Even though I could swear we've walked in a straight line, my compass insists we're heading southeast, toward the railway. But nothing looks right. That scent of grave earth still clings to the wind, faint, yet present. It's close, watching, doing something to us from somewhere in the dark. Maddie just drew our attention to something new. The trees around us are marked with fresh gouges about 2.5 meters high. We're either back in its territory or we never truly left. It was late afternoon on the 11th of November, 1922, and we were lost completely. Hopelessly lost. The sun is setting, and we've gone deeper into the forest than where we started. The compass spins in slow, lazy circles. North shifts every few seconds. Eric finally flung it to the ground. Something is wrong. He keeps saying, this is all wrong. We should have reached the railway hours ago. Juo has fallen silent. He just follows, eyes glazed, drifting like a sleepwalker. Maddie whispers prayers under his breath. Niels keeps his rifle raised, pointing at every shadow, every sound. God, those sounds. That low singing has started again, but now it comes from several directions at once, as if more than one of them is out there. Voices surround us. They sound almost human, yet crack and rumble. In places that aren't natural, I came across a tree with writing carved into it. The cuts were fresh, made by a blade in the bark. It says, "Turn back" in Swedish. Below it, in a different hand, "Too late" in Norwegian. Beneath that, "Help us" in Finnish. Niels demanded to know who had left the words. Who else could be out here? But I knew, and we all knew the Norwegians who had gone days ago, the ones who walked away in the dark. The Finnish men who packed up at dawn never made it out. They're still here, somewhere among these trees, become part of the forest. We needed shelter, I said, someplace we could defend. We've now located a rocky outcrop with an overhang. It isn't much, a shallow cave barely big enough for 5 men. Still, our backs are protected, and we can see anything coming from the front. We've built a fire at the cave mouth, and we're going to try to last through the night. One more night, that's all. One more night, then dawn, and we try again. The 12th of November, 1922, just after midnight. A margin note has appeared in different handwriting. Reading, "Stop looking. I found it moments ago." Written beside yesterday's entry. The ink is still damp, and I'm holding the only pen. Everyone is here in the cave, all accounted for. No one has left, and no one has entered. The fire is fading, and we're nearly out of wood. Beyond the firelight, I can see shapes moving, tall shadows among the trees. There are more than one, maybe 5 or 6, circling slowly, patient as stone. They're speaking to one another in that rumbling tongue, words that feel almost familiar yet distorted. I keep thinking I can understand them, and if I just listened harder, the meaning would come clear. Maddie told me to stop listening. That's how they get into your head, he said. That's how they make you walk out into the darkness. Eric thinks they're waiting for the fire to die. When the light goes out, they'll come. We need to be ready, but ready for what? Our rifles have perhaps 20 rounds total, axes that even bent steel couldn't break. 5 exhausted men who haven't slept in 2 days. What could we possibly be ready for? The 12th of November, 1922. Dawn. The fire burned out around 4 in the morning. We sat in absolute darkness, listening to their approach, heavy footsteps, deliberate and slow. Several sets of feet drawing nearer. I could hear them breathing, catch that grave earth smell, feel the temperature drop as they gathered outside the cave mouth. They waited, watching. We couldn't see them, but we knew they were there, a wall of immense bodies, silent and patient. Then Juo stood up, just stood up in the darkness, as though commanded by a trance. "I need to go," he said softly. "They're calling me. I have to go to them." Eric grabbed him and pulled him back. Juo struggled, surprisingly strong, fighting to reach the cave entrance. "Let me go," he begged. "They're my family. They're calling me home." He kept begging. "Let me go to them." As the 4 of us held him down on the cave floor, wrestling against his desperate struggles. Outside, the sound swelled into an agitated fury. A thunderous roar, like the earth splitting, shook rocks from the ceiling, then an overwhelming, absolute silence. Time stretched on, maybe a few minutes, perhaps several hours. At last, gray light crept into the cave. Dawn was breaking, and we dared to peer outside. The creatures had vanished, leaving the forest utterly empty. Yet the ground was covered with footprints, countless tracks. They had gathered 3 rows deep at the cave entrance, keeping watch, patient. Around the cave mouth, the rocks bore carved markings, spirals, and strange symbols that could have been a message, a caution, or a declaration of possession. We chose not to linger or try to decode them. On the afternoon of the 12th of November 1922, how exactly? I can't explain. We simply kept walking until the tracks appeared before us, clean and continuous through the woods, clearly built by human hands, utterly ordinary. We turned south along them. No one said a word. We just trudged. Juo remained trapped in his trance, walking like an automaton, while Maddie could barely put weight on his leg. Niels kept glancing over his shoulder, and Eric and I swapped off, assisting the more exhausted members of our group. By midday, we spotted smoke rising and a station building, nearby signs of human life, of civilization. That was when we began to run, tripping over the rails as we rushed forward. I could have sworn I caught that low, rumbling laughter one final time. A sound of amusement and contentment, as if a predator had chosen to spare its quarry for the moment. Now it is the 15th of November 1922, and I am writing from a hotel room in Carlsbad, surrounded by clean sheets, hot water, and electric lights. After everything we lived through, this modern world seems unreal, like a fever dream. Yesterday, the company dispatched investigators to our campsite. They came back this afternoon. The camp had disappeared, not torn apart, simply gone. Tents, tools, and the timber we had felled. All of it had vanished without a trace. They located the clearing where we had labored. Yet the trees we'd cut down were standing once more, completely intact and untouched, as though we had never been there. It made no sense. The investigators insisted we must have gotten the location wrong. Eric produced his maps, and the coordinates matched precisely. There could be no doubt it was the right place. The investigators exchanged glances, then studied us, and ultimately chose to drop the matter entirely. The company has declared the contract void, citing unforeseen complications as the official explanation. All further operations in that area have been prohibited. As for the men who departed ahead of us, the Norwegians and the Finns, who abandoned the job early, they remain unaccounted for. Search teams discovered nothing. No bodies, No gear, no footprints, absolutely nothing. Juo now lies in a hospital bed, having remained silent ever since we came upon that railway. He only sits and gazes through the window at the trees edging the town. The doctors attribute his condition to shock. Maddie, meanwhile, has returned to his relatives in Turu. Maddie told me he was finished with logging and with forests altogether. He plans to find work in some city filled with concrete and crowds. Neil slipped away this morning without even a farewell. I spotted him at the station purchasing a southbound ticket. Across the platform, our gazes briefly locked. He gave a single nod, then turned back around. I understood completely. We all long to forget this, to convince ourselves it was mere fatigue or terror or some shared delusion. Yet I know what I witnessed, and I know what the others witnessed too. I also know that entity still lingers in those ancient woods, watching, guarding, keeping its memories alive. It is the 20th of November 1922, and I am back home in Stockholm. Anna broke into tears at the sight of me, telling me I appeared 20 years older. Secret wanted to know why I had grown so silent, why my smile had disappeared. I explained that the job had been grueling, and I was simply exhausted. I kept the stones and the tree markings to myself. Along with that moment, I stared into those age-old eyes. In that instant, I realized certain places on this earth are never meant to be entered by humans. Some territories are owned by far older entities, beings that existed long before us and will remain long after we perish. Yesterday, Eric sent me a brief letter. He has resigned from the Värmland Timber Company and is relocating his family to Malmö. In his letter, he confided that he could never work in the forests again. Whenever he walks among the trees, he senses they are watching him. Do you understand that feeling? I certainly do. Every pine I lay eyes on makes my chest constrict with unease. Whenever the wind picks up and seems to carry that faint, low hum, I have to force myself to remember that I'm in a city, protected, far removed from those ancient locations. Yet deep down, I still don't feel secure, and I doubt I'll ever be truly safe again. On this final entry, the 30th of November 1922, I am closing this journal for good. I will hide it somewhere. Anna will never discover, and Secret will never find. When she grows up, I'll share its contents with her. For now, let them believe I simply endured a tough assignment, nothing more than that. Before I seal these pages, I must inscribe a warning for any soul who might come upon this account in the future. If you are one of those fools who dismisses the old tales as mere superstition, know this: the forests hold long memories of the deep, hidden places, ancient groves where trees have existed for countless generations. They are safeguarded not by statutes or authorities, but by entities, far more ancient beings, that never pardon intrusion, beings that never let go. We entered those wilds, carrying saws, axes, and the pride typical of modern man. We believed we could seize whatever we desired, but our assumption was mistaken. Certain trees should never face the blade, and certain woodlands should never be stepped into. And those creatures, dwelling in the shadows beneath the pines, are wiser to be left alone. The final glimpse came on the eve of our flight. It stood at the boundary of the campfire's glow, observing us, no menace, no approach, simply observing, ensuring that we comprehended, ensuring that the recollection stayed. I will not forget, heaven help me. I will carry the memory to my grave, the scent of damp soil, the The resonance of that deep, tremulous voice and the awareness shining in those sunken eyes remain with me, and I recall the realization that we were inside its domain, bound by its laws, breathing only with its permission. For 23 years, I labored among those woods, believing I knew every trail, believing I had grasped the wild. Yet, within the profound depths of the forest, dwell beings that lack names, that have no position in today's civilization. They originate from an era preceding timber enterprises and railways, before the land was even called Sweden. On the 10th of December, 1922, they discovered Neil, or what remained of him, in the woods outside Sala, 60 kilometers away from our location. His body had been placed at the foot of a pine. His hands lay clasped, his face calm, like someone who had merely settled down for sleep. According to the authorities, he perished from the elements, having presumably wandered off and surrendered to despair. I, however, recognized the truth. The newspaper image revealed it. Hidden behind his form, faint upon the trunk, were scratches and spiral carvings, identical symbols to those we had witnessed etched in the stones, the very same designs. It caught up with him, or he returned to it voluntarily. Regardless, the woods claimed what they were owed. At this moment, I pen these last words by candle glow, while the city lies beneath the first snowfall of December. My little girl rests in the adjacent chamber, warm and sheltered, and my spouse sleeps quietly next to me. The town teems with lights, noises, and crowds. Yet, in the still instants, I still catch its whisper. There it is, the soft hum, the low growl of speech, the noise of something enormous and ageless passing among the pines that recall the planet's infancy. I resigned from the Värmland Timber Company. Today, I informed them of my age and failing strength. They were sympathetic, offered a pension and a farewell handclasp, and expressed good intentions. Woods will never see me again. I will not wander beneath the pines. I will remain on the paths, in the settlements, and in those secure, refined locations where electric lamps repel the shadows. For I am aware what lurks in that blackness, and what observes from among the trunks. And I am aware, heaven aid me, that it persists, guarding those ancient spots, retaining its memories. It yet anticipates the next oblivious one who dismisses the old tales as fabrications. This serves as confession and alert. Allow these groves to endure. Permit the old sites to stay unbothered. Certain limits hold purpose. Certain cautions must be respected. The trolls truly exist, and the woodlands have long memories.